Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Untethered MMA podcast. I am your host, Mike Fagan, and as usual, I am joined by Derek Suboticki and Bleacher Report's Matt Roth. You can contact the show in a number of different ways. You can call in 410-988-6525. You can reach the three of us on Twitter at It's Mike Fagan, at FightLinkerSubo, or at Matt Roth 512. Gentlemen, both of you kind of had an interesting week. There was an interview that went out on Bloody Elbow sometime last week with Dr. Johnny Benjamin, who writes for MMA Junkie, and both of you took issue with it. And Roth, you went as far as to write your own response piece on Bleacher Report.
Yes. So my big issue with Dr. Benjamin is that the way that he phrases things, and he's done it in the past on Junkie, is that he states his opinions as fact, and because he's a doctor and he's commenting on MMA, people tend to take his word as gospel. So in the interview with Stephanie Daniels, aka Crooklyn, he commented about Frank Mir, Alistair Overeem, and Chael Sonnen. And with Chael Sonnen, he went as far as actually saying the only way that he needs TRT is because he abused steroids in the past. And without seeing medical records, without knowing a fighter's medical history, it's irresponsible and unethical for a doctor to actually state an opinion based on nothing but speculation.
And I believe his I don't know if this was before you wrote the article or during your Twitter back and forth with him, but he went as far as to call you a fatty who was addicted to carbs.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's mildly correct. I am a fat person, but my addiction is to burritos, not to carbohydrates. I love burritos a lot.
Well, burritos got carbohydrates, man. That tortilla is probably about 40, 50 grams. If you did a naked burrito, you'd be in a lot better shape.
Yeah, but that's not a burrito, man.
That's just a pile of shit. Yeah, that's a pile of filling.
That's a pile of rice and beans. That's not a burrito. I mean,
let's be fair. Let's be fair. It's a delicious pile of rice and beans.
Oh, it's a delicious pile. I guess the thing is that the second that you resorted to ad hominem attacks, you've proven me correct in everything I've said, and you've shown that you can't win an argument. Like if I have an argument with you, Mike, and you make a great point, and the only thing I have back to you is like whatever you say, faggot. Like, sorry, I've lost the argument. I could be 100% correct, but the second that I make an attack on your character or on your physical state, I've lost.
Or your Twitter follower account, which was also a wonderful measure of legitimacy. That was
oh my god, that was amazing. That was amazing because like it wasn't the fact that you don't know anything about medicals
or ethics or the Hippocratic Oath or anything like that.
It was the fact that you don't have how many followers? 500 followers? That was 500.
Like yeah. And what's funny is that I'm like 450. So if we can get this going in like a week, I can get back to him and be like, well, I'm at 500 now, so you got to fucking listen to me, and then see if he's consistent.
Well, the funny thing about that is that if you were at 550 or 750, he would have put the benchmark higher.
Sure. Well, it's a completely arbitrary thing, just like looking at pictures of people and deciding whether or not they're using performance-enhancing drugs and whether or not they need the things that they claim.
Well, to be fair about looks, I'm pretty sure Benjamin said that you can't do that. I'm pretty sure he's...
No. He said you shouldn't do it based on looks, but with Alistair Overeem, I have no doubt in my mind that he takes that he takes PEDs.
And he took a similarly no equivocation, just a stance, just an absolute stating opinion as fact, as Roth beautifully said it. That's exactly what he does when he said that Sonnen either is lying or he used steroids a bunch as a kid and now he needs to use this in order to level out. There's no other possibility. And that's an atrocious thing for a doctor to say. It's the same thing. I got two quick points to make. Bill Frist diagnosing Terry Schiavo from the floor of the Senate when he saw that home video from their family and said, well, based on this, yes, she's responsive. As a fucking doctor, you don't do that. And just earlier today, Johnny Benjamin's last tweet was saying, I don't think Lance Armstrong was cheating. Why is the USADA spending all this money to get one guy? It seems personal to me. I wish I had that fucking superpower where I could stare at people on my television and decide whether or not they were cheating just by my eyeballs.
So here's the thing, Mike. I actually talked to you earlier today about it, but I didn't actually tell you what happened.
By talking to me earlier, you mean you sent me an IM that I wasn't around to receive, and then I responded to you before the show.
Right. So basically, our tens of listeners that listen to this show, my dad is a dentist. He specializes in TMJ, which is basically it's what connects the mandible or your jaw to your skull, and so he specializes in jaw pain, but he also specializes in head and neck pain. And for me, the way that I phrased it in the comments on Bleacher Report is that it would be like my dad being shown a photograph of somebody who, he's never treated before, and he's shown a photograph of somebody with terrible teeth, and this is completely on the record, and my dad goes, well, the only way that you could have teeth that poor is because you had a meth addiction in the past. And to me, you can't do that. You can't do that as a medical professional. So what I was telling Mike before, I tried telling Mike before, but he wasn't there to respond. I actually spoke to my dad last night. I said, hey, what'd you think of that piece I did on the doctor? And what he said is, I wish you spoke to me earlier before it, because I would have given you medical terms to make him seem like a complete asshole. And it's a case of ethics. It's a case of the fact that you're doing everything on pure speculation, and you can't do that as a medical professional, because everything that you say is on record when you do interviews, and you can't diagnose people based on speculation. You need to have medical history.
You need to examine them.
Or you need to examine them.
Yeah, you need a real life fucking physician. You need to be an actual doctor, and that's part.
But he's not a doctor. Fucking Dr. Benjamin is not a doctor, by the way. Here's the other thing. This guy, he doesn't practice in an emergency room, so he has no idea how to actually treat real fucking emergencies. He's a spine surgeon that spends most of the time as a consultant, so he actually doesn't do much spine surgery either. So what is this guy's opinion based on? Medical journals? Guess what? I have the same fucking access to him because I have my father. Guess what? I have the same fucking access to all this shit because it would be like a fucking lawyer that doesn't practice law. I love John Stone, and he doesn't practice law anymore. But I'd still take his opinion on law as pretty much gospel. But at the same time, I have the same access to those legal journals because my sister's a lawyer. That's what John Benjamin is basically doing. He's just reading and basing everything off of fucking medical journals without having any idea of what the fuck he's talking about. But you laugh, but it's a fucking big deal, man. Let's say the fact, with Pat Miletich, with Derek Sabatiki does not like Pat Miletich. Is that fair to say?
Well, you know what? He's grown on me a little bit. Let's say.
But you're not a fan of him, correct? You would be okay with Pat Miletich losing tons of money because you don't like the guy too much, correct? Am I fair to say that?
I feel like you steer this rant in a slightly different direction, but I want you to keep going.
Well, here's the thing. Fucking Dr. Benjamin based an entire fucking story about Pat Miletich's alleged fucking neck injury on speculation and hearsay. Didn't do any fucking examination of Pat. Didn't see any medical records. Everything was based off of rumors and hearsay. That actually ended up costing Pat Miletich $4,000. The guy is so irresponsible as a fucking physician that he's costing people a significant amount of money. That's fucking bullshit. If you're a fucking physician, if you're a fucking professional in any way, you need to act professional and fucking Jesus fucking Christ! Who the fuck gave this guy a fucking voice?
It's MMA Junkie, and I think that's where we kind of need to turn our attention to now, because they're the ones that continue to employ him and give him a forum to write shit like women shouldn't be allowed to fight 5 rounds, because the longer that people, I don't know if you guys knew this, I read this in a medical journal, but the longer that people fight, the greater the chance of fatigue and injury. Fucking mind-blowing, I know, but we got to watch out for it with the weaker sex. Well, plus, the UFC lynched Kimbo Slice. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, there was a lynching of Kimbo Slice, but the same guy actually said that MMA is racist, and then he fucking calls it a lynching. Like, how fucking hypocritical are you, man?
And how often did lynchings result in the guy getting lynched receiving millions of dollars and walking away? Like, how often
how many fucking lynchings actually occurred without somebody getting hung? It wasn't a fucking lynching. It wasn't a fucking employment. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
The high-tech lynching. Clarence Thomas with the pubic hair and the coke. You got to remember this shit.
Like, I'm so fucking furious about this because, like, my dad takes his job seriously. Most doctors take their job seriously. The fact that Chael Sonnen may not actually take him to court for fucking slander, that doesn't change the fact that what he said is slanderous.
I'm so happy to hear you this passionate about this, Matt.
It has nothing to do with the petty personal insult, which just magnifies.
No.
I don't even give a shit the guy called me fucking fat. You know what? I am fat. I'm also the same guy that fucking enjoys living his life and doesn't care about the opinions of others. That doesn't fucking matter to me. I don't care that he called me fat. I appreciate the fact that everybody got behind me and called him a scumfuck before it. That's fine. My problem with him is based solely on the fact that if you're a medical professional, you need to have you have to be fucking professional. Be professional. You wouldn't see my dad who, like, he wrote the book on TMJ. He wrote the book on TMJ. All the literature that you read was, like, my dad was consulted for it. He is a well-respected dentist as well as doctor dealing with TMJ and head and neck pain. You would never hear my dad going on record without seeing without seeing the patient or any medical history. You would never hear my dad going on record and speculating. That's right. Bullshit.
That's right. And I imagine that if somebody talked a bunch of shit to him and said, you have no medical ethics, you're violating the oath, you owe physicians an apology, he wouldn't take that lying down. And that's exactly when Benjamin went completely silent because he knows he can't answer that charge. Medically, it's a reprehensible thing to do.
It's bullshit. The AMA would he should have his license suspended, man. And that's not me saying, oh, hey, you know what? Fuck Dr. Benjamin. He should have his license suspended. If you can't act professionally in your field, like, that would be like me. I'm an MMA journalist. I'm getting credentialed for UFC 148. I have credentials all throughout the year. That would be like me showing up to the weigh-ins or the workouts or the fights completely hammered-ass drunk and going and attacking fighters based on shit that's not actually based on fighting. Going in their personal life and speculating. Like, oh, Randy Couture, you got fucking, you got divorced from Kim Couture. There must be a bigger story behind it. That's not a fucking thing you could do.
Well, if you're at a hunt, you can, because you can say John Jones had women in his car, so there must be a bigger story there. But hey, yeah. So, like, we're joined now by somebody with...
Hold on. Hey, who's running the show, Derek?
Well,
who's running the fucking show? Before we go any further, you mentioned something about MMA Junkie and taking the issue to them, but I don't think anyone should be calling for Benjamin to get removed or stop giving a voice. The thing is, as with anything, just stop paying attention to him. I stopped paying attention to him when he wrote that article about women going 5 rounds or going 5 minutes in each round. He's an idiot. He's never demonstrated to me that he has an opinion or an intelligence to him that I respect or care to hear about or hear from. So I just ignored him. And I also, just before we go to John, I want to. We talked about a quote that Benjamin made about Overeem. I just want to read the exact quote. Crooklyn asked him, "What are your thoughts on Alistair Overeem?" And this is Benjamin's response. The one thing that I always harp about, and it always ends up making me eat humble pie, is that you can't look at a person and tell if they're on steroids. But with him, you could look at him and say something funny. Put it like this. You can look at somebody and be highly suspicious, and he was one of those guys that you can look at and be highly suspicious. So kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth there. But I believe we do have John Snowden on the line. John, are you there, sir?
I'm here.
Did you?
What am I involved in? What kind of show is this?
I don't know. Apparently the first 20 minutes are Matt Roth goes crazy.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. I like that quote. It's a tremendous quote. It's like, you can't tell by looking at someone if they use steroids, except for this guy. He clearly does steroids.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. It baffles the mind that this guy is considered a credible person because he has an MD. He's a medical doctor, and therefore the things he writes are given a certain credibility that they probably don't deserve. There's like 600, I looked it up, like 661,000 MDs in the United States. And just a rough estimate, probably like 150,000 of them are full of crap completely. So, I think he's probably one of those.
And it's the forum that he has as well. It's not just the credentials. The fact that he writes for MMA Junkie, which remains one of the most trafficked MMA sites and the go-to a lot of times for breaking news, and a lot of times for his opinion. He's gotten kind of a voice there. Do you think that MMA Junkie should still feel comfortable employing him if he's going to be going out and saying things like this about fighters and putting them in possibly actionable position?
I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. Would you? I mean, if it was a fan shot on UnbloodYelbow.com where all of us used to work or read, I guess in Subo's case, if it was a fan posting and they said something like that, you'd remove it from the site. I think that's probably true. Wouldn't you think? I mean, if it was something that was that wrong, that was stated as if it was a fact, that's like unacceptable for a reader to write on.
Well, they had that photo for years and years of, Overeem from like 2005 to 2008, the pictures showing his development, and people would come on and comment about it, but it was never, the focus of a front page fucking story. I can't imagine that guy would remain employed very long.
But it's not even that. It's the fact that he has no idea. He has no idea. Like it's the same thing as like John. You were a former lawyer. You have no idea about a legal case, but you're giving your opinion based on pure speculation, and because of the fact that you held this position in a previous capacity, that you're held in as authority, like that can have long-term consequences for other people because you just without worrying about anything, you just state your opinion as fact. That's the huge problem with Dr. Benjamin.
Right, and the problem that I have with it is that, I don't even have a problem with somebody saying like, hey, that guy, it looks like that guy's on steroids. That's not a problem I have with someone. That's an opinion. It's somebody's opinion, and a lot of guys do look like they're on steroids. The problem comes in with this guy saying, I'm a doctor, and that guy looks like he's on steroids, and I'm saying this as a doctor. Like, there's never any doubt that this is Dr. Benjamin speaking. He makes it really clear who he is, and he's a world-renowned doctor. He does back surgery and neck surgery, and his credentials are right out there. He makes no bones about that. He will never let you forget that for a moment, even on Twitter. If you happen to engage him for a moment, he's a medical doctor. He makes that really clear. So that all of his ridiculous opinion is kind of also couched in this. Well, it's my opinion, but I'm a doctor, so it's a little bit more. It's more valuable than your opinion, and I don't think it is.
One thing about that too, John, is that going back to the lawyer thing, I have a couple of friends that are lawyers, and if I ask them a question about the law, if it's not something that they specialize in, they make sure to tell me, listen, I don't specialize in rental agreements or housing issues or stuff like that. Like, people make sure that they tell me, like, I'm giving this to you as kind of my own just general idea of what I know, and I don't want you to take it as legal fact.
Right. Nobody gives more caveats than a lawyer when you ask them a legal question. We definitely, that's something we learned in the first day. It's like, hey, and you do that too because you don't want every idiot that asking you about their divorce and stuff like that, and like, oh, my child support payments, like, oh, I don't know much about that. Like, you have to say that. But I mean, that's just a responsible thing to do. And this guy just making like these definitive statements. That's my problem. It's not a statement like, well, in most cases, that's a sign that this person is using steroids, or it's real black and white to him. Like, he just says outright, like, well, there's no other explanation. And in the reading of the literature I've done, because I've had to, unfortunately, as much as this comes up, it doesn't even seem like this guy understands the TRT issue, like, in a very in-depth way. That's what's amazing about it, is he's coming at us with these medical credentials, but he's not actually giving a very nuanced view of it, or a very factual one, and that's where my problem, comes.
Yeah, I guess for me, my big issue with Dr. Benjamin is the fact that if he did have it, it's not even the fact that he's saying that he's a world-renowned doctor. Like, the guy doesn't work in surgery, so like, he can't, in my opinion, and this is my strict opinion, he can't actually give any sort of statements beyond an explanation of like, hey, this is what the journals say, because he doesn't practice. He really doesn't practice all that often. You know, like if you are somebody who never took the bar exam, you don't practice law, but all you did was go to law school, or you didn't take, you didn't become a board certified doctor. All you did was go to med school, and all you have to go for, to base around your arguments is medical journals and what you learn in the I guess it's 4 years of medical school. Like, you can't make a definitive statement. We have no idea what happened with Chael Sonnen. We have no idea what happened with Frank Mir. We have no idea what happened with these guys. And he's saying 100%, I would say that this guy took steroids. You can't do that. That opens you up for so many fucking legal action. If Chael decided to actually do it, I doubt he would, because it's likely that Dr. Benjamin is correct. But but you can't say that definitively.
No, you can't. And even if you're a good doctor, even if you've gone through all I mean, like, Bill Frist had thousands and thousands of hours in surgery, but when he diagnosed Terry Schiavo from the Senate floor as being responsive based on a home video sent to him by her parents, that was a medically unethical thing to do. One of the new Hippocratic Oath, the one that was rewritten in the 60s, I think the fourth line of it begins with, "I will not be afraid to say I don't know." And that is what Benjamin should be doing when talking about somebody's steroid usage from 2 decades ago that he's never fucking met.
What's funny to me is that everybody kind of goes back to if you need TRT, then you shouldn't be fighting anyway. Well, that's not really fair, because, I mean, an inhaler for an asthmatic is the same thing as TRT.
Well, how about a golf cart for Casey Martin, a guy who was a good golfer but can't walk between the holes? He had to sue the PGA under the American with Disabilities Act. How long until we see something like that in MMA, when you try to ban somebody from taking something prescribed by a doctor that they say they need to practice their trade?
I don't know.
John, is there anything else you want to say before we get you out of here?
There's a million things I want to say. I don't know.
Let him say them all, man. I told Snowden anytime he wants to give us is awesome, because he's got more Twitter followers than all of us combined, and according to Dr. Johnny Benjamin, that is the measure of legitimacy.
That's the measure of a man. I've got more Twitter followers than Dr. Johnny Benjamin too, so by default I win the argument.
There you go.
So by default, you actually you have more medical knowledge.
Yeah, you're a doctor.
Hey, you guys are talking about that he can't get by just reading the journals. The problem that I was addressing, I don't think he's even read the journals. So that's the biggest issue. There's a lot of discussion, like when you read the fans talking in the comments and stuff, about what they call mark doctors, which are doctors who are fans of the fighters, and they want to give out medicine, and they write these prescriptions and stuff like that when maybe it's not medically necessary. That's what they define as a mark doctor. But the real mark doctor is someone like Dr. Johnny Benjamin, who, in spite of, he says he has a thriving medical practice, but yet he has time to spend half of his day trying to be a presence on MMA websites and going on MMA radio shows. I can tell you that my dad, my grandfather, 2 of my uncles are doctors, and if you're like a successful doctor with a real practice, you don't have all day to sit and argue with people online about TRT and stuff like that. So, I mean, who's the mark doctor? Is it the guy who wants to go to the fight, to meet with, his big thing is he wants to meet with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta? The guy's just a fan, right? I mean, that's what this boils down to, is we've got a fanboy doctor, and he wants to get his face out there on MMA Junkie and Tap Out Radio. That's
and I don't know. And he also seems like kind of a mark for Lance Armstrong. I don't know if you saw this today, John, but earlier today he tweeted that he didn't think that Lance Armstrong had ever used steroids or performance-enhancing drugs, but why is USADA spending all this money on one guy? It seems kind of personal. So that superpower that enables you to look at people and judge whether or not they've ever used PEDs is just fucking amazing, and I wish I had it.
And the broader point, and guys, you guys know this, I'm sure you kind of hinted at it earlier, probably all these guys are using PEDs. It's ridiculous to be like, oh, these guys are using testosterone replacement therapy. Like one, that would be the best PED they could use, or the one that makes the most sense. Meanwhile, they're probably all pumped full of human growth hormone and all these other things, and EPO if they've got the money for it, and who knows what else. So, like, the idea that, like, TRT is the great PED for the, for this new generation of athletes is ludicrous on its face. I mean, if you want to tell me that a lot of these guys are using PEDs, yes, I believe you. So why so focused on this one that is relatively benign in comparison?
That's a good point, sir. John writes for Bleacher Report. Thanks for calling in, John, and I'm sure we'll talk to you sometime soon.
And I think, real quick plug for him. Shooters just came out, and all the pro wrestling marks on my Twitter feed have just been raving about it. Even Front Row Brian said something nice about it, and I think he has more followers than you, John. So he's the best. He's the best.
He's the definitive voice. Yeah, you guys invite me on the show. Nobody's been asking me about my book or anything. It's just like
and it's got to be Subo doing the diplomatic thing, bringing it up at the end. What a fucking
call up and talk about the Urkel-looking doctor. Like, all right, we talked about the Urkel-looking doctor. Like, let's move on to something else. I've got other things I can tell you about.
Last thing, John, before I let you go, can I get that book on Kindle yet, or is it still in that transition period where we're waiting for it?
Let me go. No one tells me anything. Like I make these announcements about like when it's going to be on Kindle, and then the publisher writes is like, you can't say that. we didn't tell you that. Like, I don't know. It seems like it should be. How hard could it be to get a book on Kindle?
You fucking scan it, you make a file, and you put it on the server. How hard can that be?
It really doesn't seem like it's a difficult process. But what do I know? I don't know. It looks like not yet.
Yes,
we're all looking forward to our autographed copies. Is what I'm saying.
Well, Matt Roth has it,
and I have to finish it. I've been, I'm not gonna lie. I've been getting drunk with sexy girls at the pool all day, so I haven't gotten a chance to finish it. Every single time I go to the pool to actually finish the book, it's like, oh hey, another girl in a cute bikini with big boobs. What's up? Like, it's very distracting.
Matt, when you read this book, you're going to want to get a new tattoo, some kind of wrestling-based tattoo. It may feature a dinosaur, a roller coaster, a theme of some sort, but whatever you like. But I do think that the book is going to demand a tattoo on your body. It's that good.
We'll talk about that at UFC 148.
All right. I appreciate you guys having me on to talk nonsense.
Thanks for calling on, John.
Thanks, man.
All right.
The last thing I want to say about Benjamin, and if you guys have anything else you want to add on, but you go for it. But the last thing I want to say about him is that you guys talk about him having a voice at MMA Junkie, and what I've seen from him is that every time he gets a chance to, he totally fucks his credibility. We've already mentioned the other stories that he's written that have been just kind of flabbergasting. If you look at, going back to the lawyer thing, if you look at the Fight Lawyer, he writes a blog. I believe it gets at thefightLawyer.blogspot.com. He's writing a lot, especially about the New York issue getting regulated and stuff. But that's a guy that if you followed his blog and you keep reading him, he just keeps building credibility because it's just smart, sound writing about a very niche subject that he's very good about. And I think Benjamin's done the exact opposite of that during his tenure at Junkie.
Well, I'll say, without knowing Dr. Benjamin's sexual history, I would say that he's. I'm going to speculate. I'm going to opine for a second, and I'm going to say that he's an enormous faggot. but I'm stating that as fact, which is the same thing as he's done. He's a massive faggot. But this is This is my opinion. I have nothing that to hold it and make it actually so. This is strictly my opinion, but I'm going to opine for a second, and I'm going to say that he's an enormous faggot.
Do you want to say
sad? What? Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, do you want to say that word anymore? I mean, you got 3 out within a 20-second span. So if you want to, if there's a quota you're trying to reach, you might as well just hit it right now. All right, Matt Roth doesn't understand what the word quota means.
Well, I mean, the only word that I understand is the fact that he's a massive faggot.
I feel kind of. This is like watching like in The Sopranos that first episode when you see the ducks fly out of the pool. I feel kind of that sad right now because we've been doing this show for about 6 months now, and Roth had the best rant ever. I've made you guys laugh a couple of times. I've had a couple of good jokes. But that was the best rant in the history of the show, and it's like watching a baby bird fly out of the nest. I'm so proud of you, man.
I mean, you think this is the thing, though. Like, if we really do want this guy to be taken seriously, like, you know what? And this is actually something I wanted to try and keep secret a little bit, but I'm going to try one in Atlantic City this coming up week for UFC on FX. I'm going to be speaking to the New Jersey State Athletic Commission's doctor, and she is actually the head of surgery at Mount Sinai in Manhattan. Like, we're looking at somebody with legitimate credibility who knows exactly who she is and what she's talking about, compared to Johnny Benjamin, who has no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
I think that whole interview should just be like you showing her pictures and be like, "Do you think this guy's on steroids?" And her being like, "There's no way I could tell. Like, that's an impossible thing to know from a picture." Like 20 of those.
That's exactly what it is, right? Like, the guy has no idea. Oh my god, I'm so mad. I'm so mad about this, guys.
Well, let's transition to something a little happier. Last week we had Miss Michelle Lopez on, and there was a Cupid being played. I want to know, and I've seen that she's kind of been talking to both of you guys on Twitter. I'm just wondering who's got the upper hand here. Derek, are you going to make a move? Are you going to man up and actually go out with this girl?
Well, basically what I did was I brought up the fact that there's a video on YouTube of me drinking a glass of my own piss, and I'm pretty sure that's just going to kill any possible,
It sounds like she's interesting. It sounds like she's interested in me. Like, that's the way that I'm taking it, is that she and I have a thing going on right now, and I think that it's possible that maybe I can go to UFC in Denver and hook up with Miss Michelle Lopez. I would love to meet her, even if it's just as platonic. I think an interaction between myself and Michelle would be really interesting, because I don't think that I'm retarded.
You should come up to Denver and watch the UFC anyway, because even if my broke ass can't afford a ticket, we'll get wasted while you're here.
We would get wasted, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I do like the idea of all three of you meeting up and the love triangle kind of playing out.
No, she's already down for a devil's threesome, man. Don't plant any ideas in this girl's head.
Devil's threesome!
You want to flip a coin, heads or tails? Like, what's up, man?
Heads or tails, as in one gets the mouth, one gets the booty?
That would be the point of flipping a coin for heads or tails.
That would, that does work out really well.
Well done, attaboy.
I just love that Matt was trying to play Cupid last week and try to help Derek out, and now he's probably going to be the one that's going to meet her and bang the shit out of her.
That's because Matt Roth is a fucking smooth motherfucker.
He's Stone Cold Pit, man. I mean, even with the carb issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Even with the carb issue, man.
Even with the carb issue. I don't like cards. I just love burritos, man. You need to read an Atkins manual at some point in your life. I used to weigh, when I was 15, a lot of people don't know this. You guys might. When I was 15 years old, I weighed 270 pounds. Like,
you were a fat fuck as a little kid.
I was a big boy. I was an offensive lineman. I played football for 7 years, and into freshman year.
Wait. Does that mean you were in high school for 7 years?
No. I played football. I was in high school for 2.5 years, but I played football for 7 years, and the last year I played was freshman year, because at the end of freshman, beginning of sophomore, coaches were like, "Holy shit, we could have a 300-pound offensive lineman, and that'd be awesome." And then maybe you go to college and play. I was decent, I could move, but it was either gain 30 pounds and try to do that, or lose weight and get a job. So I lost weight and got a job. And anyone who says the Atkins diet is bullshit is lying, because I did that diet for 6 weeks and I lost 50 pounds. It's fucking amazing. If you just cut out the sugar and the starch and the carbs in your life, it makes an amazing difference.
You know what's a great diet, Derek? It's eating fewer calories than you burn.
No, listen to me, man.
That's the secret. That's the fucking secret.
No, the secret is there's a lot of different secrets. If you treat your body if you drink a 6-pack of soda a day, okay, and you weigh 270, if you stop drinking the 6-pack of soda, then you're going to lose a bunch of weight.
But
that goes right back to my point.
But you can replace those calories. I ate a half pound of salami a day on that fucking diet. I ate meat and cheese like it was fucking nothing. And it didn't matter, because when you get your body into ketosis, and you can test this by pissing on little strips to see the pH of your pee, then your body not only burns the fat that you're taking in, but it burns the fat that you have stored up, because when you eat carbohydrates, that turns into sugar, and your body burns that before it ever gets to the fat.
Okay, so just hang on for 1 second because I'd like to make this all about me.
Damn it, Roth.
I know. Everything is all about me, especially
you got the first
today.
half of the show, man. I gave you credit like you're the better troll than I am now. You know how much that sucks to say?
I know that really does suck for you. But here's the thing. I may be a big boy, as Dr. Benjamin eloquently put, but I can also still do front flips and combat rolls and shooting star presses into the pool with no problem. Like,
can you do the Vader moonsault though, like the 450-pound Vader moonsault?
Yes.
So, dude, Vader is back. How badass is that?
How awesome is that? Vader is
so
back.
Happy.
But here's the thing: like, I'm just as athletic as people that are skinny. Like, the only thing that I have going for me, that like negatively, is the fact that I have a belly. That's really it. I'm awesome.
I still have titties. I weigh 195 pounds and I still have titties.
So
I don't have titties.
What you're saying is that you're the Roy Nelson of MMA media.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and going back to Michelle Lopez, everything goes full circle. She did ask for a guy with a fighter's body. I have a similar body to Roy Nelson.
And Mike Russo.
No, Mike Russo is like, looks like he has jelly. Like, I have a straight belly. Like,
what was the name of that guy that Gabriel Gonzaga knocked out that had like the weird fatty chunk disease? Wasn't it also like Johnny Hendricks or Johnny Hendrickson or something like that?
No.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Gonzaga knocked out a can once at the UFC, a heavyweight. This is after the fight. That had this weird disease where he had these chunks of fat stuck on his body.
You're making me look up his fucking record.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it was like after the Couture fight, it was one of his bum fights, Johnny Hendrickson or some shit like that. And
Josh Hendricks?
Josh Hendricks.
At UFC 91, the same card that Couture lost to my boy Brock Lesnar?
That is correct. It was after the Couture fight. That was an awesome card, by the way. And Gonzaga hit him so hard that you could see the individual sections of the fatty corpuscles that had assembled on his body quiver as he hit the mat.
To actually make that statement totally correct, it was not only after the Couture fight, it was after the Verdum fight and after the McCulley fight.
Yes.
Okay, so he got two cans back to back because he lost the Verdum fight as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you saying Verdum?
Verdum.
It's Verdum. It's Verdum.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you the R as an H thing, but a W is a fucking W.
Do you know how many languages the W sounds like a V in? Like
I don't care.
A lot.
I won't care. I won't be caring anytime soon.
Yeah, you're an asshole.
Partners.
We're almost 40 minutes into the show, and I only have 3 things on the ledger here. MMA related.
We're winging it today. You didn't send us shit.
I said I'm going to come up with it right before the show, and I did. There's 3 things that are worth talking about from the week. The first one being the changes to the Ultimate Fighter. The show will still be on Friday to Dana White's chagrin, but we'll be reverting back to the taped format. And I understand that the tape format gives them a better opportunity to tell stories, but I think the overall problem, and I've said this on Twitter all week, is that you cannot put a reality show on a Friday night and expect people to watch.
You can't put anything on a Friday night.
I mean, and Dana addressed that a little bit in his comments. He said, we're going to do one more season on Friday, and then I think that, FX is happy with it right now. I'm not. And if we do it Fridays one more season and it still sucks, then they'll talk about moving it to Tuesdays or Wednesdays, which I do think is better for them, especially if they're competing head-to-head with Bellator.
Well, and the thing that's kind of been weird to me the entire time, and this goes back to when they signed the Fox deal. Fox had this idea that they were going to make Friday night fight night. That was their branding. They were going to make Friday night the night to watch fights. The problem is that the UFC, since Zuffa bought them, has tried to make Saturday night the night. That they've made Saturday night synonymous with the UFC, and trying to move that to Friday night, which is, in my opinion, a worse night of the week to be airing live sports and fights and any sort of television that you want viewership. It just seemed like a really backwards idea. Why are they trying to, like, what's the point to shifting the UFC to Friday nights? I never understood it, and I don't understand it.
I think it makes more sense for the Fox cards to be on Saturdays because it's not like you're going to be running a pay-per-view within any realm of that, because it's going to be relatively a pay-per-view quality card. Maybe not as good, but at least a lot of fighters that would normally be involved in one. When it's an FX show or a Fuel show, you can run those on a Thursday or a Friday and still have a pay-per-view on Saturday that features the big boys. maybe that plays into it where they understand that Saturday is pay-per-view or Fox card night, and the rest of the week, even if it's Friday, can be reserved for other things. But Friday's not the best night for it, as you said.
Well, and even next week they have 2 shows that weekend. They have the Maynard Guida fight on Friday, and then they have the outrageous UFC 147 pay-per-view on Saturday.
That's actually a real thing, by the way.
They?
That's actually a real thing.
What's a real thing?
147 is actually a real fucking card. That's not like, oh man, we've all been making up this like the worst event of all time in our brains, and that's like what collectively we all came up with. No, like that's the UFC going like by themselves. Joe Silva said, what can I do that's going to make the worst card of all time and find out the absolute bottom of what people are willing to fucking buy.
If I were to tell you, hey, there was an awesome fight that was the main event of a card in the last 2 years, and now they're going to do a rematch of it, your head might start. So you'd be like, oh, is it Condit Campman? Like, no, nobody wants it. Like, that's not happening right now. Oh, well, what fight is it? Oh, well, it's Rich Franklin Vanderlei Silva. Oh, well, that's a piece of shit. What? The first fight was awesome, just like all the other fights.
No, the first fight was okay.
It was fantastic.
I would actually argue that the Atlantic City card headlined by Guida Maynard is way better than.
No, that's not controversial. I don't think.
Like you guys are okay with me saying that?
I heard from one person on Twitter who said, I think it was someone from the UK, and they mentioned that they had been watching Tough Brazil, and that they were looking more forward to UFC 147 because of that. But generally speaking, I haven't heard anyone say that. Or try to even make the claim that UFC 147 is a better card. I think the FX show or the Fuel show, whatever the fuck it is, clearly the better show.
So can I actually break some news with the FX show?
Sure.
So
That's
the
not
FX
what
show.
we do here. Hold on a second. We don't break news here. We're not reporters. We're not guerrilla journalists or anything.
I am a reporter, though.
Guys.
I actually am a reporter, though.
Oh, God, that's right. Okay, sure. Break it.
You're also
the Q&A. So the Q&A for the weigh-ins, right before the weigh-ins, is actually going to be with Frankie Edgar. And that's going to be awesome because Frankie Edgar, when you get him into a normalized state where you can just ask him normal questions, he gives really, really, really good responses. So the Q&A is going to be at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. with Frankie Edgar. And if you're a Fight Club member, it's probably worth coming out to.
Well, I'm glad you broke that news from that UFC press release that you just got.
Yep. What's up?
Yeah, I opened my email before anybody else, bitches.
I mean, so yeah, just going back to the whole point, like I just don't understand the.
No, what's your second thing?
Fox's. This is. Oh, you want to move on?
Yeah, you got a second thing, right?
I have 3 things. We can go to the second one.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is Tito Ortiz has been officially announced as a Hall of Fame entrant. I believe they will be doing that sometime during 148, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Before his fight. I've seen some people try to argue against it, and mostly it comes down to the fact that Frank Shamrock is not in the Hall of Fame, which
whatever.
I mean,
how many bridges can you burn and still bitch about it? Like, I mean, if you walk out of your boss's office and just piss on all his files and give everyone the finger on your way out and threaten the security guard, like take a dump on the stairs on your way out of the complex, do you expect him to introduce you as employee of the month, like next month?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand where the UFC is coming from, and I think a lot of people should not view the UFC, the Hall of Fame, as a traditional Hall of Fame, but rather as more like a team retiring numbers, and then
like a Ring of Fame,
like a Ring of Fame, or whatever basketball jerseys up in the rafters and stuff. Obviously, personal politics will come into play a lot more then.
I mean, they don't like Tito. It's not like Dana's a big Tito Ortiz fan, but he's getting in because of his record. And if Frank had stuck along and not fucking retired in the prime of his career, then maybe he'd be there too. But he did. So I don't feel sorry for Frank Shamrock in this instance.
But that's not even the issue. I mean, like Frank Shamrock retiring in the prime of his career, that's not the huge issue. It's the fact that he and Dana have they've butted heads over everything.
But how many UFC fights did he win? Like 5?
Well, like he didn't
make a resume by fighting beyond the age of 28 that was undeniable. That it's like Pete Rose, where people are still like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Frank Shamrock ain't Pete Rose.
Frank Shamrock is better than Pete Rose.
There ain't no fucking way.
I think
At fighting.
I don't know. Pete Rose did get fucking tombstoned by Kane. I'm pretty sure Frank Shamrock would have the same thing happen.
I'm pretty sure if Frank Shamrock would turn it into a shoot. This is the same guy that kneed Henzo Gracie in the head over and over and over again because he was getting just out grappled.
Yes, and 8 palm strikes from Boss Rutan and smiled during it. Yes, he was fun, and I know that Kid Nathan Wilcox over Bloody Elbow, has a Frank Shamrock shrine inside of his house. So every year or so, you need to bring up how screwed Frank Shamrock has been and how he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. But it's a two-way street as far as that goes. He said, fuck the UFC. He retired in the prime of his career, and he did not make a resume that you can look at and say, wow, he has to be in. He just didn't.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing with Frank Shamrock. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in the UFC. He beat Kevin Jackson, who is a Olympic gold medalist. He KO'd and retired Igor Zinovev with a slam.
That was good.
He beat Jeremy Horn, and that was when Jeremy Horn was actually like super feared. John Lober, and then he also beat Tito Ortiz. Like I get the argument because Frank Shamrock, in most people's opinion, was the first fighter to actually cross everything, including boxing, striking, and submissions. So, and it's the same people who also feel that Pat Miletich should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not one of those people. I don't know.
I'd put Pat in. I would, because he actually had a long title reign.
No, but Pat Miletich didn't really do much.
I mean,
he also went on to be a legendary coach, which I think weighs into it as well. The success of Miletich fighting system.
Frank Shamrock and Frank Shamrock was there for the creation of AKA.
Well, yeah, but the Lion's Den is really more associated with the Shamrock name. But how many titles has AKA won? Okay, how many titles has AKA won versus fucking Miletich fighting systems?
How many? Well, you have Josh Thompson as the Strikeforce champion. You have Cain Velasquez. You have Luke Rockhold. You have Daniel Cormier. That's the guys that are... Mobile Wall. You have Kung Lee, Frank Shamrock. Guess what? AKA is actually a pretty good camp, man.
What was Kung Lee the champion of?
Strikeforce?
No.
Yeah.
Was he? He was actually their middleweight champion? Who did he beat for that? Frank Shamrock. That's right. He beat Frank Shamrock for that honor.
He beat Frank Shamrock and then wouldn't fight again because he was making movies. But that still makes him a champion.
And he broke Frank Shamrock's arm with kicks, which made it funny when Frank Shamrock was calling the Kung Lee Scott Smith fight and saying, "Oh, those kicks don't hurt." Like, well, they broke your fucking arm, so they must be pretty okay.
I'm just saying that honestly, in my opinion, Frank probably should be in the UFC Hall of Fame. I
totally get why he isn't, though, right? Like, you totally understand.
Of course. It's a completely hypothetical Hall of Fame. It's not actually voted on by the media. It's based on the fact of who's been a really good company man.
Well,
like I've been talking to our mutual friend PDL about it. Do you think that when Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin retired, do you think they're both Hall of Famers?
Forrest is in for sure. Stephen Bonner, I think, is probably. It's really hard to make a case for Stephen Bonner.
I think that they're both Hall of Famers in the UFC's eyes because they were both responsible for basically making the UFC the thing that it was today.
Let's start the debate off correctly here.
Is Kenny Florian a Hall of Famer?
No,
I think so. I put Kenny Florian in the Hall of Fame. How about this one? How about Brock Lesnar?
Of course he is.
Yes,
because he's going to.
I wrote an article about it.
Portion of whatever physical structure they ever build. So yeah, his pay-per-view buys are going to buy that fucking building. So yeah, he should be in it.
So Michael, this is actually something I wanted to know about because it was announced. Remember when you announced, "Oh, hey, I'm going to be writing for Vice magazine," and then you didn't, and then you wrote that one story. And then you didn't write anything else.
You want the inside baseball story about what happened there?
Yeah.
So basically, here's what happened. They approached me. I wrote that initial article for them, and then after that, they run their site more like a traditional media outlet. So it's not like a blog where you just sort of post your own stuff. And basically, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of editing and stuff like that. So what happened is I would pitch them stories. They would say, hey, that sounds interesting. Go ahead and write about that. I would write the story. I'd send it in. They'd come back. They'd say, listen, we want some changes here. And a lot of the edits that they wanted me to make were to gear the stories and articles more toward a non-sporting audience than an MMA audience. Because, first of all, Vice magazine isn't really known for sports coverage in the first place, and MMA is even more of a niche than anything else. So they would come back with edits. I would edit my piece. I would send it back to them. We'd go back and forth 3 or 4 times with that. And then at the very end, they would say, well, listen, this isn't really what we're looking for, so we're not going to run it, which is fine, except there's no, first of all, the price per article wasn't exactly great money, and there was no kill fee. So I was doing all this work and not getting any money. Traditionally, when you write for a magazine, if you write them an article and they work with it but end up not running it, you still get some payment for it, for the work. So basically, it just came down to the fact that happened, a handful of times, and it just wasn't worth. It wasn't worth the effort to go through that whole thing. And I don't want to say that to sound like I'm upset about it. I'm not. That's just what happened.
So what you're saying is that there's an availability for Subo to work and step in.
Possibly, if he.
Well, at least he had the potential for pay. I have never operated under the assumption that a good article would get me money. I just wrote them for the sake of writing them.
Sometimes.
I do want to go back to Frank Shamrock for a second. There's a couple points I want to make.
God.
Matt said something about the UFC Hall of Fame not having media members vote on it. I'm not sure that media members is a necessity for a Hall of Fame. I think you've seen in other sports that the media isn't exactly the most fair and objective and unbiased.
Why would you put in McGuire, Fagan? Would you do that? Would you put in Bonds?
I probably would. I mean, the fact that a guy like Barry Bonds is probably not going to get in his first ballot and has a potential to not get in at all is just outrageous. I mean, even just through history, though, the fact that no one in baseball has gotten a unanimous vote, and there's just this weird thing where the media doesn't want to give someone that because Babe Ruth didn't get the unanimous vote when the Hall of Fame first opened.
The unanimous vote is one thing, and they'll never do that, and it's stupid, like you said, because of the Babe Ruth thing. But as far as a guy like Mark McGwire, who's like 6th year now, and gets like 30% of the 60 or 75 or whatever it is that he needs, he's never getting in. And
no, he's not.
Think that's fair?
I mean, I don't think it's fair or unfair. I just think the media isn't exactly the best.
They don't like cheaters.
People. It's not even about cheaters. I mean, you look at a guy like Tim Raines. Tim Raines is basically a light version of Ricky Henderson, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, that's a great thing. And his numbers really warrant him being in the Hall, but he'll never get in because he didn't have, he didn't play for any big championship teams. He wasn't in a big market for most of his career. He just wasn't.
Himself as a former reader of Fire Joe Rogan, because this is something that they harped on quite often.
No, this is something that every sabermetrician harps on, and I've
exactly everybody that gets into the Bill James version of baseball says Tim Raines should be in the Hall of Fame. It's been
and not even Tim Raines, Burt Blyleven, he finally got in, last year I believe, or this year. He should have been in for a long time. The reason he didn't get in was because he didn't win 300 games, and he didn't win 300 games because he played on really bad teams. But if you look at his actual just raw pitching stats, he's one of the top 10 or 20 pitchers of all time.
And what's nice to see them coming around now, but I mean, what are McGuire's numbers like super impressive other than the 580 home runs or whatever it was that he hit? He didn't get to 600, did he?
Offhand, I would say no, but I mean, he broke the single season record. I mean, I think Roger Maris should get in because he broke Ruth's record.
Most people don't give Hall of Fame slots, at least in baseball, based on 1 year. It needs to be like if you hit 270 for your career, but you were MVP for 1 year, they look at the 270.
Roger Maris won 2 MVP awards. It wasn't just the single year that he broke the record. I'm not going to argue that Maris had a career that warrants Hall of Fame credentials based on his entire performance, but he was one of the most influential and iconic, baseball players especially of that era. I don't think the Hall of Fame is necessarily should be based strictly on your career totals. I mean, I think if you're, and this goes back to like Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar doesn't have that huge.
But he had an impact on the sport that far outweighs Roger Maris's. It wasn't like attendance doubled the year after Maris did what he did.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
there's no context. Look at the attendance numbers for Major League Baseball in 1961 and 1962, and then look at the pay-per-view numbers for UFC 2008 versus 2009. There's no context.
Are you guys really talking about baseball, though?
Yeah, we are.
That's why you went silent there, Roth. I was
waiting for you to pipe in. Boring, man. Baseball's so boring.
You got the Rangers, though, man. Arlington's like right there. Go see a game. Drink some beers.
Right there. You know how far Arlington is from me, man?
Like 100 miles?
5 hours.
Shit.
5 hours.
Is Houston closer?
Houston's 3 hours.
Yeah, Houston's closer. The last thing I want to say about Frank is that I think he's a Hall of Famer. I also think that a lot of people overrate him. I think he won 5 UFC title fights. I mean, I think that alone is Hall of Fame worthy. But in retrospect, the guys he beat, you could make the case that Jeremy Horn was feared in 1998, but he didn't have a great record going into that fight. I think Tito Ortiz is probably his best win, followed by beating Bas Rutten in his debut, probably. He later lost to Bas a year after that, and it was also in Pancrase. So, can you really trust those results?
No.
But you look at the entirety of his career, he doesn't. Outside of Tito and maybe Bas, he doesn't really have a ton of like big legacy wins. When you look back in retrospect on the guys he beat. But
I don't want to talk about Ken Shamrock anymore, or Frank Shamrock anymore. I don't want to talk about any Shamrocks.
Then we'll move on to another Dana White issue. It came out that Shogun refused a fight with Glover Teixeira 2 weeks ago. I think we talked about it on the show, or last week we talked about it on the show. But then Dana went as far to say this past week that he actually threatened to cut Shogun over it.
No, that's not correct.
That is correct.
No, Shogun said, "I'd rather get cut than fight him."
Yes, and Dana said that he was threatening to cut him.
Well, that was in response to, basically, I believe he said it was Lorenzo that said it, but one of them said to him, this is tough. Guys at your level making your kind of money shouldn't be turning down the fights. We might have to cut you. And Shogun's response to that was, I'd rather you do that than fight Glover Teixeira.
This is...
which Shogun now says is bullshit, or Shogun's trainer. One of the two says, I didn't say I'd rather get cut.
I will read the quote that Fight Linker posted from a Dana White post-fight scrum. It's about Shogun refusing to fight with Glover Teixeira. Because he absolutely refused to fight him, he would rather be cut than fight him. You know what? It was one of those very weird situations to hear one of the top 5 guys in the world say, I'd rather be cut than fight a guy who isn't ranked. And the reason that they were saying was because, he's not top 10. But then we offered him Brandon Vera, he took it in 2 seconds. Vera isn't top 10 either. Someone asked this question earlier, but the reality is that Shogun is a guy whom I respect. He's been in a million wars with all the best in the world, but for some reason he does not want to fight this dude Glover. And you know me, if you don't want me to tell the truth, don't say that stuff to me on the phone. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly the way it went down. And me and Lorenzo said, listen, dude, you can't be turning down fights at this level. With the money you're making and where you're ranked in the world, you don't turn down fights at this level. We might have to cut you. And he said, I'd rather be cut than fight him.
There you go.
All right.
So it sounds like, yeah, go ahead.
So here's the thing. I mean, the reason why I believe, at least, that Shogun's turning it down, like, Shogun doesn't turn down fights. Like, he's fighting Dan Henderson in a 5-round war. Like, he's not exactly scared of dudes. I think it's more along the lines of his management looked at the fight and said, hey, there's not, like, we're weighing the cost versus the benefit, and beating Glover Teixeira, who, like...
Nobody knows about.
Nobody knows. It doesn't help your career except in maybe Joe Silva's eyes, maybe. But in the eyes of the fans, it does nothing for you. Beating Brandon Vera in the eyes of the fans, even though he's on, like, he's a horrendous fighter, it still looks really, really good because fans go, well, it's Brandon Vera.
Right.
I
don't think there's any. I mean, I think that's very obvious. It's a fight that Shogun. It's a dangerous fight. Glover is obviously a tougher opponent than Brandon Vera at this point. And like you said, if you beat Glover Teixeira, you were supposed to beat Glover Teixeira because no one knows who he is. And if you lose to Glover Teixeira, now you've lost to a guy that no one knows about. And in their eyes, it's a huge upset, and you're obviously, you should retire.
It's the same situation that Josh Koscheck faced when he got knocked out by Paulo Thiago.
Right, exactly.
That was a no-win situation for Koscheck. Like, a normal manager would go, well, why are we or Fabricio Verdum versus Junior Dos Santos. There was no reason for Verdum to take that fight, except for the fact that there was a paycheck involved. It's an unknown prospect, and by unknown I mean, what was the line on that fight? It was like some retarded line that somehow shifted because people saw Dos Santos hit pads, but it wasn't like a huge it wasn't like, oh man, Junior Dos Santos, we know who he is. He's one of the top guys in Brazil. Nobody had any idea who he is. And, Verdum should have done what Shogun did, which is say, look, I'd rather fight somebody else. It doesn't benefit my career to take this fight. And I really do, again, I know that you personally don't, you don't like what Ben Folks does, but he actually spoke about this earlier this week with Chad Dundas on their podcast, and it was basically when you speak to Dana White at scrums or anything like that, or on one-on-one or at scrums, there's certain things where he won't where he'll tell you I'm gonna lie to you guys because there's no way I'm gonna tell you this honestly. The reason why he spoke to Ariel Helwani and gave that quote about Shogun is because he needed to tell a story, and he knows that we as MMA media are gonna pick it up.
Well, and that's my issue with it is the fact that, first of all, it's a real childish response to that. I mean, the guy, Shogun's got a career to manage. I don't think any fighter is obligated to take any fight the UFC offers, and I think that's contrary to some people's opinion. But I don't think a guy should be forced to take a fight with just anyone because the UFC wants him to.
What if he's a champion? You think a champion should be able to turn down challengers?
That's a little different of a situation, but
it's still the UFC saying, hey, here's the number one contender. You're going to fight him next. And the champion be like, oh, I don't want to do that. He's fucking nobody. That's the same thing that has killed boxing over the last fucking couple of decades.
Yeah, except the number
one
contender
in the UFC.
The number one contender is not going to be a nobody. And that's a bullshit thing to say. That's a bullshit argument to make.
But let's say, if fucking Carlos Condit were to fight Josh Koscheck and then he loses and they're looking at Koscheck, North St. Pierre 3, or some other stupid shit like that where you don't like the challenger, but he's the next in line, like Silva turning down Talis Lietas. You wouldn't say that Silva's ducking Talis Lietas, but he earned his spot because there was nobody else that had as legitimate a claim to the title, and the promotion essentially forced him to fight him, and he responded by dicking around. But I like having the promotion there on behalf of the fans, because the fighters don't fight on behalf of the fans, they fight on behalf of the fighters. There needs to be a counterweight in those negotiations.
Are you saying that Talis Lietas had a legitimate claim to the title?
Yeah. I would argue that
title shot, because he beat Nate Marquardt in that stupid split decision because Nate Marquardt had 2-point deductions. There was nobody else to get that shot.
All right, that's a different point altogether. But the second point I wanted to make is that this is just another example of Dana burying his own fighters. Why would a promoter bury his own fighter?
He's done it before.
And he's done it before. He did it with both Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos after the Fox show. I mean, why are you trying to take down one of your? I mean,
what did he say bad about Junior after the Fox show? He said that I thought Cain wouldn't go out there and box, but what did he say bad about Junior?
He said something about Junior not having cardio or some bullshit like that. I mean, he said
what he said in the post fight was, you should have tried fighting in the second and third rounds because Junior has questionable cardio.
It just goes against every idea
of criticizing Dana White for being honest now and saying his actual opinion about his fighters. Is that what we're doing?
No, but as here's the thing: he's a promoter, so
he should lie.
No, but for no matter the outcome, like in a title fight, he should be defending or praising the new champion.
Yeah. And my thing too is I want the UFC to be as honest as possible, and I don't want them to lie about fighters to promote them. I took huge issue with how they promoted Yushin Okami against Anderson Silva. There's just certain truths that you don't have to talk about. You don't have to talk about the fact that Shogun turned on this fight and that you thought about cutting him. Like what good does that do?
There's no benefit. There's no benefit.
I mean, the only benefit is that it gives you leverage against Shogun.
Or that somebody asked him, like, hey, what the fuck is up with Brandon Vera versus Shogun Rua? Why did you make that fucking piece of shit fight? And Dana has to say, look, I tried to make what I thought was a better fight, and I ran into these obstacles. Everyone that was bitching about this main event, now that we know half the story behind it, it's like, why would you come out and tell us the story behind it? Pick your fucking poison, guys.
Here's a very easy answer to make. Why did this fight go down? Well, we had an injury. We needed to replace the fight. We wanted a Shogun in the main event. We gave him a list of opponents, and this is the one he took. That's much better than saying,
because that's normally not what they do with
saying Shogun Rua. I mean, first of all, if they put Shogun Rua and Glover Teixeira together, people would still have the same issue with that main event.
Right.
Maybe it's not.
They'd be more excited for the fight. They'd at least see it as more competitive. They wouldn't say Glover Teixeira is going to get. They wouldn't say Glover Teixeira is going to get burned.
Fuck out of here, man. If
the lines would be a good $200 closer on each side,
not even close. Not even close. Like, you'd have the same bitching and whining because nobody's ever heard of Glover Teixeira. He had one fight in the UFC. He had one fucking fight in the UFC.
And second fight's against Shogun Rua. He's been out of because
of the UFC.
The whole
story behind the fucking main event.
The whole story behind him is that he's a really good fighter. He's top 10 quality, but he's been kept out due to visa issues. So he wins one fight by absolute domination in less than a minute, and his next one's against a top 5 contender. That's a storyline.
No, it's not a story because it's not. It doesn't happen. You're an idiot.
The reason he hasn't been in the UFC up until now is not because of talent or because of losing or because of not being hyped enough. It was because of issues beyond his control. Now that those have been rectified, let's see what he can do. That's an absolute thing. He can sell a fucking fight. A lot better than, let's see how quick Shogun Rua finishes Brandon Vera.
So frustrating right now because Derek is an idiot.
No, dude, you're defending the fucking Brandon Vera main event as being equal to
I'm not. Because the event that I wanted is fucking Shogun versus Machida 3. That's what I wanted.
And that's something that we went over last
week. If we're going to do that for the next Brazil Ultimate Fighter, which is the rumor, then it makes complete sense why they didn't make that fight now.
You're so frustrated.
He's like, you need to beat Bader, and Shogun, you need to beat whoever, and then we'll do the trilogy between you guys.
Well,
and what happens if it doesn't happen? What happens if Shogun loses to Vera or Machida loses to Bader? Then what do you do, Derek?
Well, then you figure out something else, but you don't want a guy that...
No, you can't do that.
You got to win fights to get slots. That's the way it is. It's not fucking WWE.
It is WWE.
If it was WWE, we'd be looking at Lesnar Kimbo 3 coming up next month.
If one of the things they want to do is put Shogun and Machida on the next Ultimate Fighter Brazil, then the Vera fight makes 1,000,000 times more sense than Glover Teixeira. 1,000,000.
Well, apparently they decided to go with Glover Teixeira first, possibly because they were concerned about giving Fox a subpar main event. And they wanted to make the best fight that they could. They have multiple...
Glover Teixeira in a main event is a subpar main event.
It's an injury replacement. Are you saying he's worse than Brandon Vera if they put him in that?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that no one knows who Glover Teixeira is, and trying to sell a Fox audience Glover Teixeira against anybody is a terrible main event.
It's not even possible. You can't do it.
How many people know who Brandon Vera is after the last 4 years of nothing? The only people know
more people know Brandon Vera than Glover Teixeira.
I think the numbers are pretty similar, other than the Phillies.
You're such an idiot.
I'm telling you,
God.
Such an
You're so full of shit. You're so full of shit. Come into
the sport the last 3 or 4 years, like if I came into the sport in 2000,
Derek,
if I didn't go back into history and research why Vera was so fucking popular and famous before, I'd have no fucking idea who he is because he's done nothing since then.
Derek, this is why I fired you like 5 times at Legend. Because you talk out of your ass and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Loved it when I did that. It got stage hits.
So basically what Derek has said in 2 consecutive weeks is that Brandon Vera and Lyoto Machida are both as-deserving as main eventers, and Brandon Vera is just as popular as Glover Teixeira is.
I'm saying that they're all, yeah, pretty much. I don't think there's
Why
a big...
is he a co-host?
How many
Why
people
is Derek a co-host?
aren't hardcore UFC?
Because we can do this with him, Matt.
Not very many. Not a lot of hardcore UFC or non-hardcore UFC fans know who Brandon Vera is. He's not a popular name.
You don't know who Brandon Vera is. You have no no idea what you're talking about, Derek. This is literally the most frustrating conversation ever.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked by Frank Mir in like 2006, right? Or he kicked Frank Mir's ass back then. But since
Oh my god!
a lot
Oh
going
my
on,
god! Who is this person?
not a whole lot going on for Brandon Vera.
No one's arguing that Brandon Vera deserves to be in the main event.
I was.
Two of us are arguing that he deserves it more than Glover Teixeira.
Well, they
No.
offered Glover Teixeira first, so they were more concerned with putting on a quality, competitive fight than they were about name recognition. Fuck them for being that concerned about that, right? What a stupid thing to focus on.
Oh my god, Derek. Play the damn music.
Let's get out of here. Play the music, Erica. We'll have a new theme music next week, so if you enjoyed the old one, I'm sorry, but it's getting out of here.
Nobody enjoyed it.
This is a great show. Bye. Fucking asshole.
Fatty.
Moron.
Oh.